Hello everybody and welcome to Decoding the WSL, the podcast dedicated to the stats and facts in the WSL. We're on to the second half of our season previews. Today we're having a look at Merseyside, both the blue and the red. We're going to look at how the teams got on last season, what's changed over the summer, and then I'm going to make some predictions of how I think 24-25 will go. I'm your host, Sam Biccarino. Yes, here we are. Hello, listener. Thank you for joining me on what has been a delightful Monday, the 16th of September. I don't know what it's been like where you are, but in Cambridgeshire, it's been absolutely glorious. As I mentioned in that introduction, we're looking at Merseyside today. We're going to go to both the blue and the red side. There were contrasting results last year between the two sides. Liverpool obviously had a much better season than Everton, but we'll get into what's happened over the summer, and then how I think the next season will go. And we're going to start with Everton. Last season, I think, was very much an average season for Everton fans. They won't be enamoured with the results, but will also be happy that they weren't close to the relegation zone. They finished 8th in the end in the WSL with 23 points. It wasn't a great season for the club. They were 8 points off the top half. At the same time, wasn't a nightmare. There were 17 points off the relegation zone, so comfortably off that, but not quite in the top half. The previous season, they finished 6th in the league with 30 points. So 2 places down, 7 points down on the previous season. It's not an improvement for the club. But as I said earlier, not a nightmare, not the end of the world, still something to build on. Last season, they only won 6 games all year, with 5 of those wins coming in away games, which I thought was quite interesting. So the only home match they won was 2-0 at home to West Ham. The away wins they had were a 4-0 win at Bristol, and then all the other wins were very close. So they won 1-0 away at Liverpool, 2-1 away at Villa, 1-0 away at West Ham, doing the double over them, and 2-1 away at Brighton. 4 out of 5 of the matches they've won have been by 1 goal and have been close, low-scoring games. You know, there's no 3-2s, 4-3s in there either. It very much shows that West Ham have come to shut up shop, and that was a tactic that actually worked quite well for them in those away games. It wasn't, however, just a tactic they employed in the home games. In fact, they had the lowest scoring matches in the league. So in games that involved Everton, there were 61 goals in 22 matches, an average of 2.8 per match. As I said, that was the lowest in the league. Most teams had 3 or even up to 4 goals per game. Everton also didn't have a game that had 6 or more goals. So it wasn't like there were the odd match that was really high scoring. It was consistently low scoring matches, not necessarily scoring lows themselves, but also doing well to shut out the opposition. Off the back of that, a statistic you may be unsurprised to hear is that no Everton player scored 4 or more goals in the league last year. In fact, one of their joint top scorers last season was Megan Finnegan, captain and centre-back. I don't think there's many teams in WSL history whose centre-back has been their top scorer, and they're probably not going to be the highest up the table if that is the case. But rather than just focusing on what happened last season, I'm going to have a look at what's happened over the summer now. So there have been quite a few players leave the club. There's Martina Piemonte who's gone to Lazio. Katrina Veja has gone to Palace on a free. Hannah Bennison has been sold to Juventus. Eleanor Dale has gone to Sunderland on a free. And then Tony Duggan and Annie Wilding have been released. And Inez Pereira has gone to Deportivo La Coruña on a loan. Quite a few players out and some more important players in there, especially those first 3, Piemonte, Veja and Bennison, I think will all be big losses for a side that didn't have that many star players in the first place. Saying that, their transfers in have been quite high quality as well. So Inma Gabara has come in from Sevilla on a free alongside Tony Payne, who has also come in from Sevilla on an undisclosed fee. They've been quite canny in getting in Vitriki Sarri from Brighton, who I think is going to be a really underrated but important signing for a team like Everton. Hanoka Hayashi has come in from West Ham. She was a very important player for them last season. And Melissa Lawley has taken the jump over from Liverpool to Everton, across the city, and will likely be a very good signing for Everton and wasn't really getting enough minutes at Liverpool. So I think that's a transfer that's good for all parties. A couple of other important things for Everton over the summer were not signings necessarily, but talking about contract extensions. So 3 quite important players for Everton have signed contract extensions and will be remaining at the club. And I think for all 3 of them, it's really good news for Everton fans because They're three players where I think one of them does get quite a bit of good press, but the other two fly under the radar quite a lot, albeit do put in some quite good performances. So the main one that people will have heard about is Aurora Galli. She has signed a new contract, as well as the twins, Karen and Sarah Holmgard. I think the contract extensions and the squad changes have been quite interesting this season at Everton, especially given the club as a whole and the financial difficulties that they have. It's not been a case of a mass exodus, trying to get the wage bill down and selling off loads of players, because yes, Hannah Bennison has gone for a fee, but they've also brought in Tony Payne from Sevilla for a free and have kept on some of their players that have gone out of contract, but will potentially be some of the higher earners at the club. I think it's a good sign for Everton fans that although they're probably not the best backed women's side in the WSL, they have some Premier League money behind as well. They're not that well backed, but the club are looking like they're trying to do what they can to help the women's side and to keep them in the WSL, because like we've already touched on, there's been a bit of regression from last season, and if you fall another 2 places, that's down to 10th, and another 2 places the following season, you're getting relegated. So the club have noticed that. They're trying to keep them up. They're trying to do the right thing, and we'll see how it goes throughout the season. In terms of what's going to happen this season coming, and my expectations for it for Everton, I think in the domestic cups, there's probably not too much threat of them going very far. They haven't really got the quality to get past some of the big sides. But in the WSL, it's going to be a bit of a fight. I don't think they're going to be at threat of being relegated, but I think they will finish in a similar position this season. There are some of the sort of mid-table teams that are taking a step up. You look at your Aston Villas, you look at your, I guess you can count them as a mid-table side. Leicester are obviously making some moves as well, as are Brighton, and Everton are trying, but I don't think they've quite done enough to progress any further than they did last season. So yes, they've had a good window, not as good as some others, but I think they'll finish 9th this year. The reason I don't think they're going to finish any lower than that is that although they don't necessarily have the player quality that some of the other teams do, Brian Sorensen did a good job last season. I think will continue to do a good job of making them really hard to break down. They'll have a similar style of play. They'll have low-scoring games, comparatively low-scoring games anyway, because the WSL is quite a high-scoring league. That Everton will do what they can to nullify those games and make it difficult for teams to come there and difficult for teams to host them and get away with 3 points. So 9th is my prediction for Everton this season. Now let's take a trip across and have a look at the red side of Merseyside. Now, Liverpool are a complex case because last season, they almost out of nowhere had a really, really good season. So they ended up the WSL season in 4th with 41 points. They were 9 points off the top 3, so off the Champions League qualification behind Arsenal. But they ended up 6 points ahead of Man United in 5th, which I think with a few matches to go, didn't really see the gap being that big. But Man United finished very poorly, Liverpool finished very well, and that's how it ended up. They also finished 17 points ahead of the bottom half, so they were comfortably a top half side. Now, obviously, the players on the pitch are the people that make the results happen, but off the pitch slightly is Matt Beard, who I think did a fantastic job, because with the style of play they have and the players they have, I don't think many people would have been predicting Liverpool to finish 4th last season. Some of their underlying numbers probably suggested that they maybe shouldn't have finished 4th. They actually finished the season with a negative expected goal difference, and that's your expected goals minus the expected goals against you. They finished on minus 1.1, so not far off 0, but they finished with a +8 actual goal difference. So there's a bit of an overachievement there. So that's both scoring more and conceding less than expected. Like I said, there's an overachievement there, but will that revert to the mean? That's normally what happens where teams cannot consistently overachieve, but if Liverpool can, if they have the players that consistently overachieve, then they could potentially do the same this season. Another quirky stat that I wanted to highlight last year was around Sophie Roman-Haug, who broke the record for the most aerial duels in a single season, on record anyway, with 105 for the WSL. The next highest last season, behind 105 Sophie Roman-Haug, was Millie Turner on just 54, so 51 behind. It just shows how much of a beast she was in the air, and also indicates quite strongly the tactics that Liverpool had and how they were trying to get the best out of them, their tactics as a team, and how they were trying to score goals with crosses and putting Sophie Roman-Haug into aerial duels as often as they could. Another player I wanted to highlight last season for Liverpool was Marie Herbinger. She got 11 involvements in her first season in the WSL. She also got a lot of points on Fantasy WSL last season. Outside the top 3 teams, she was one of the highest performers in the league. I think getting 11 involvements for a team like Liverpool on your first season is an indication of the quality she has, and obviously she's staying at the club. There are other players that have come in as well. Liverpool could well be quite a good attacking force this season, but I'll get to that as I look through the squad changes over the summer. Now, the main transfer out for Liverpool this year was, I think you'll agree, Missy Bo-Kerns. She's gone to Aston Villa for an undisclosed fee. She was Liverpool's youngest ever captain, aged just 20. Played for them, obviously, in the Championship as they came up. She has her own mural in Liverpool. She's has been most recently the England under-23s captain and has been in the senior squad as well, albeit she's not quite got her first cap yet. But as well as it being a big issue to lose her and lose a player of her quality and all that she brings outside of actual footballing ability, you know, her leadership, presence in the change room and around the club, it's even bigger to lose her to a team in a similar area of the table and a similar sort of stature in the WSL. I think Aston Villa are going to be a team that will have improved a lot over the summer. If you want a bit more insight on Aston Villa's season, or Aston Villa's summer anyway, go check out the podcast I did a couple of weeks ago with Sophie and Freya. We covered this really well, and yeah, much more detail in there about what Missy Bo-Kerns can bring to them. And let's take a look at some of the other squad changes that Liverpool have had this season. We've already touched on Melissa Lawley, obviously not getting loads of minutes last year and moving over to Everton, where she'll probably be one of their more star players. The other players that have left are Natasha Flint, who has gone to Tampa Bay. Shanice van der Sanden's gone to Pachuca. Holly McAvoy has gone to Aberdeen. And then I think 2 of the bigger losses, other than the ones that we've already spoken about, Miri Taylor, who has also gone to Villa. She was on loan there last season, and that move has now been made permanent. She's a player that I don't think gets that much hype in the media. She doesn't get that many people talking about her, but from watching her play, you know, from the eye test as well as the data, she seems like a really good player, and I think one that will keep improving with time. Another player they've lost that I think will be quite a big loss is Emma Coivisto. She was integral to what they did last year. She was on the ball a lot. She put in loads of crosses, that kind of thing. So to miss out on a player of her quality now will be a big loss for Liverpool, and may even result in a bit of a change of style unless they now have someone that can play in that position just as well. In terms of players coming into the club this year, there's Gemma Evans from Manchester United on an undisclosed fee. There's Cornelia Capox coming in from Linköping on another undisclosed fee. But I think the main signing this year has got to be Olivia Smith. So she has come over from Sporting Lisbon for €250,000. She is a club record signing for Liverpool. And because she's been playing in the Portuguese league, she's potentially someone that a lot of people don't know that much about. So she is a 20-year-old Canadian midfielder / attacker. She's had 10 caps for Canada and became their youngest ever player, aged 15 and 94 days in November of 2019. She played in the 2023 World Cup and also in the 2024 Gold Cup. She won Young Player of the Tournament. So she's a player that already has a decent amount of international experience, despite the fact that she is only 20. At Sporting last season, she got 21 involvements in 18 appearances, so more than one a game, and helped them secure Champions League qualification. As well as new players coming in, there have been signings for contract extensions for some players already at the club as well. Captain Neve Faye has signed a contract extension, so has Rachel Laws, and I think probably the most important one is Leanne Kiernan. She did really well towards the end of last season, scored a hat-trick, and is still quite young, represents her country, and could be one for the future as well. The sort of player Liverpool will want to hold on to if they want to be consistently getting into the top half of the WSL. Now, in terms of how I think they're going to get on this season, it's going to sound kind of negative because they did so well last year, but actually I still think they're going to have a really good season. And it's not that they're worse than last season. I just think they overachieved last season and were above where they should be based on their performances. This season, I think they're going to be a top half side again. I think they've lost some important players over the summer. I think Missy Bo-Kerns going is going to be a very big loss for them. But Olivia Smith coming in could be, if she hits the ground running, a very good signing as well. So I don't think they're going to do as well as last season, but not quite as bad. I've still put them 6th for a top half finish. They're probably going to focus more on the league than on the cups, especially now they've got quite a thin squad. My hot take for Liverpool for this season is that Grace Fisk is going to be their player of the season. I tweeted recently or posted on X that she had the most clearances in the WSL over the last few seasons. And although she's a lot less busy now than she was at West Ham, she's still topping those numbers. So she's still going to go and bring her quality. She's going to grow as a player. Things like her distribution are going to get better. And although she's going to miss the first probably 2 or 3 weeks through injury, once she gets back after that, I think she's going to be a star player for Liverpool and potentially pushing for an England place in the future. So that's my expectations for Liverpool this year. 6th place finish in the league, probably not too far in the cups, but a good solid season. And again, something for them to build on as they go forward. As I'm on my own tonight, there's obviously no game of Know Your Stat to round off the episode, but thank you for joining, listener. I hope you've enjoyed it. A reminder to go find me on socials. If you haven't already, I'm at Statarino. That is on X or Twitter, where I post most of my content. And then you can also find me on Instagram and TikTok as well. And also a reminder to join my WSL Fantasy League. I'll put the code in the show notes to join. If you haven't already, sign up to it. It's good fun. Last season was the first season they did it. And there were over 30,000 people signed up straight away. And it's a really good professional job. I was really impressed with it. And yeah, as someone that loves FPL, it was a really good thing for me. And I'm sure you will enjoy it too. Finally, if you've enjoyed the pod, make sure you follow wherever you get your podcast to make sure you don't miss an episode. And please do give a 5-star review. Decoding the WSL is still quite a new podcast. So the 5-star reviews really help others find it and help us grow. Once again, listener, thank you for being here today, and I will see you at the next one.